What up, world, and welcome to another episode of Black Nerd Fridays. I'm your host, Neal, and yeah, I'm by myself, but it's all right because I got a guest with us, Clayton, the co-founder of Dolo Distribution. Again, we're a anime, comic, manga, sci-fi movie show, but of course, we drink beer. And what type of beer do we drink? Craft beer. Come on, you got to get it. Clayton, how you doing today?
I'm doing excellent, Daryl. I appreciate you having me, man. It's always a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to talking about some cartoons.
Man, and we are talking about the Legend of Korra. This is the continuation or the second saga to Avatar. Avatar: The Last Airbender. We definitely are going to get into it. We were just talking before we pressed the live button to talk heavily about the elemental bending. Love how some of the characters like Toph and Katara and all of them showed up, and they showed pretty much everybody except for a few on the Fire Nation side, the ones that didn't have bending, whose names I can't remember, who Zuko was dating at the time with the knives, and then the other one that was a part of the group that just knew how to kick everybody's ass and with the martial arts and the chakra points and just knocking things off. So yeah. It's going to be a great conversation, but as usual, we got to talk about what we're drinking. Clayton, I'm gonna leave it to you. What are you drinking?
What am I drinking? Just went into the fridge and we found a cream ale by Border Psycho Brewing, and it's right on the border. They have it just down there in Tijuana. Did a little bit of research on it. It's like half its label's in Spanish, half of it's in English, so I think that means it's authentic. It's brewed with orange peel, and then I'm not sure what this other word is, but Amarnath.
Hops. Is that? I don't know how to pronounce it.
Amarranth. Amarnath.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but
Amarnath. What? Yeah. My pronunciations are horrible. But yes, go ahead.
It's one of those words you see and you're just like, oh, I think I've read that before, but never hear it pronounced. Yeah, but I mean, dude, like this can, like, it screams that it's. I don't know much about this brewery, but it just screams that it's self-distributed, man. Like,
looking at the label too. The label doesn't even go all the way around the can.
Nah, just the.
That's all right. You got to get it in the mud, so I respect it. Shout out to that brewery. All right, so for me, I came with three. Got a shout out to Brick Terrarian Beer Hut, who's on holding me down with the crazy Santa. Okay, this is and I'm trying to get it to zoom in correctly if I can. It's a lot of light going on there, but this is a American Belgian Strong. This is at 19.4% high ABV life. That is what we are about.
You're gonna be able to make it through the interview?
I'm gonna make it through, man. This thing is aged and it had to be a whiskey barrel. I can't even pronounce the whole thing. Brick, my bad on that. I'm not doing the greatest promotion, but this thing at 19.4, this is what we do here. We like the high ABV life, so I can't wait to drink that. And then I got Hop Dogma out of where's Hop Dogma? Oh yeah, I just went down there. I can't even remember the damn city that I went down with Hop Dogma. That is horrible. All right. Come on, Daryl, get yourself together, D-Neal. All right, but anyway, Hop Dogma Brewing Company out of Half Moon Bay. There we go. I couldn't get it on my head. I got their Alpha Dankatopias. Dankatopotamus almost. So it's pretty much a hippopotamus on here. Excuse all the light going there right there. So that's a hippo. It's Alpha. It's a double IPA. It's only 6.9. I thought it was actually higher. And then I got another Hop Dogma. Shout out to Hop Dogma, man. We had a great time. I'm gonna take a picture of those. Send those pictures of the flights on the IG for Beer Talk now. But I got a Smile medication right here, and the Smile medication, that is a double IPA as well. It's not as danky, but this one is at 8% or 8.2%. So again, we love beer out here. So let's jump into it as I bring Clayton back. We're going to talk about what we usually do here when we're always talking about shows. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Clayton, I'm going to start you off with the good. What was your good about The Legend of Korra?
The good was the fact that it was the Airbender. I mean, the honest truth about it is just like there's so much, let's say, spiritual or like just little just like life advice I found throughout the original one, and then I kind of echoed a little bit more in the sequel, where it's just, it's it just is. It is what it is, right? You know, it has that whole element of, you know, the supernatural powers that we all kind of wish we had, and you know,
Yes.
that whole life progress, and there's even the element of like, even though, and I think in season 1 they captured this probably the best, is that even though, you know, you have these, you know, superpowers, let's call them, like there's still the same kind of, let's say, BS, or the same societal issues that occur, even if half the, you know, population, you know, has, you know, superpowers and the other half doesn't. It's like it and maybe this is going a little too deep, a little too soon, but you know, just the idea of like, you know, disparagement, or versus like, you know, people who are in power and then the people who aren't in power, and
Elitism.
yeah, just like trying to, yeah, exactly, the elitism, and trying to figure out how, you know, you balance that in a society. I mean, regardless if everyone can, you know, bend or not, you know.
You got a point. And shout out to Brick. This crazy Santa is definitely, this is a good one right here. I like the flavor on that. I know it's the self carbonation, natural carbonation on that, but this is definitely nice. The good for me definitely is going to be the bending. I love the fact how lightning bending became like a dime a dozen for every fire firebender. In that sense, I mean, Republic City was literally being powered by firebenders who were using electricity to power the city, which I thought was amazing, because it showed the practical uses of bending on top of technology mixed in with that. But that was, to me, I think was great. You had lava bending, you had air bending at a level to where it was pre Avatar: The Last Airbender. So the Juan, I believe, is his name. I got my trusty dusty notebook here with me. So yeah, Juan, the first airbender, when they did that storyline, you got to see airbenders that could fly because the turtle or tortoise that gave them their bending ability for air, they were able to fly around. So I love to see that part. It was just a lot of the blood bending. To me, is probably hands down one of the best, if not the most just devastating bendings period.
Terrifying.
So that was just amazing to see. I love that whole aspect of that, and just taking away bending, that whole idea of like losing bending, like losing a part of yourself and becoming normal. Back to your point, that definitely clashed, and a lot of the non-benders who were following one of the antagonists, Amon, if that's how you pronounce his name, like they weren't necessarily against him taking away bending. So that was pretty crazy with the on that aspect of the disparaging ways of a bender versus a non-bender. Now, when it comes to your ugly, Clayton, I mean, you're good, you're bad. Excuse me, I jumped straight from good to ugly. When it comes to your bad, what was your bad?
I would say, so I'll say that for the ugly. For my bad, I didn't really like was how who was the head, the master, Aang's son, the master airbender.
Oh, Tenzin.
Yeah. I didn't like how Tenzin like was so hot-headed. Like it felt out of character to me, because if he's supposed to be this like nomadic, like meditative airbender who's supposed to be, you know, there's a peaceful state that's associated with people who meditate, or, you know, let's say Buddhist-esque, you know, culture. And it felt like he got way too hot-headed at certain things. And to me, it felt out of character for him. And I thought it happened a little too frequently, especially for him. Like, felt like that'd be something you would want to save for like one situation, a season or something, where you see him erupt. But it felt like every other episode he was getting like too easily, you know, shifted. And it was like, wait, you're supposed to be this meditative airbender. So, you know, that was kind of my bad, I guess, about it. You know, I
actually like that, because it just reminded me of how Aang was, and I wanted, and that's what I'll hold that for my other question that I had. But I really wanted to see more flashbacks of the relationship between Tenzin and Aang, because Tenzin was the only child that was able to airbend, and because airbenders, again, Aang was the last airbender, so Tenzin had a lot of pressure. But when he did explode or blow up, he literally was just like Aang as an adult with a mustache.
Right.
I mean, with a goatee. But I mean, no, I definitely get that. At times, it was like this calm. They presented you this calm person, and then all of a sudden, he just like chasing the kids and all this crazy stuff. So definitely, the bad for me, I'm gonna say the bad for me was Korra and her avatar state. And it wasn't throughout. It wasn't always. It wasn't completely throughout the show where it was bad. But at certain points, I was just like, it was almost a rejection of the avatar state, or really not utilizing it that way. But I think that's again tying into my bad, the lack of training that Korra really got, because she was such a natural at picking up all the other bending. It was like she wasn't really trained against top tier individual elemental benders. Like she was training against people who were like, yeah, they're world class, but they weren't what like a lot of the antagonists were, which were die hard, like we'll kill somebody with our bending. This was more so we defend people, or we take over and we submit people to our will. So that's who she was really fighting when she was learning. But all in all, I was like, yeah, that avatar state, which is supposed to be the premier state, it just literally just lacked, especially towards the end. Now there was one season, which I'll get into, which is my ugly, that really had me like, you should have been using the avatar state like this throughout, and you would have not had too much difficulty more than what you already did prior to being in the avatar state.
I think something that touches on your bad is kind of like the meta structure of how both the original one and then this one were kind of set up, where the original one was all about stopping the Fire Nation. It was all about like stopping before the was it before a solar eclipse? Yes. Or it was Sozin's Comet. Before Sozin's Comet, yeah. It's like, all right, we got to stop him before Sozin's Comet. That's what the entire plot was about. And then it felt like there was a huge switch where you had these like, huge plots that were building up each season. You had Amon. She needed to defeat him, and then in the next one, she needed to defeat, I think,
Batu, which is the spirit, the evil spirit.
Yes, the evil one. Oh, which is also interesting because with Rava, they were like, Rava can't live without this one, and this one can't live without Rava. Right. Batu. But then they seem to kill off the evil one.
I know. See, you're jumping straight into my ugly, but go ahead. Go into your ugly. Continue.
Oh, okay, my bad.
No, it's good. Continue. What was your ugly?
We'll go to my ugly. My ugly is that, and I saw this in the first movie as well, or in the first series, where there was always like, it seemed like they could have done something to stop someone quicker. Like whether it was usually ice related or rock related, earth related, where it was like, okay, why don't you just freeze their hands in place? Why don't you just bind their hands? Like, you had them in this ice thing. Like, is it really like that much more difficult to just like, I don't know, move your hand up and, you ice their whole body because now they can't move? Like, it's just little things like that to me was like, it felt like they never, here's a good way to put it, they never really like trained how to secure somebody. And with a jiu-jitsu background, it's like, okay, the control is like what it's all about, right? So if you're able to control someone's arms or even their mouth, right? There's so many situations where Aang got free just by blowing like air out of his mouth. Yeah. And to me, it was kind of just like, all right, how did nobody ever think of these things? Like, if all this bending has been around for ages, for, what you could assume to be well over, I don't know, maybe 1,000 years. How was like securing an individual not like a higher trained element or something like that? Like, there were so many situations where ice would like just get their foot and then they would break free, or like, it's just like, dude, like you could have easily done this or this.
Absorption of the water out of the body, the blood bending ties in. It could have been, and I know the show, it's like the show did a one up on the level of bending. But I completely got what you're saying on that. So my ugly is definitely with Batu. And the reason why I say that is because like this is supposed to be the premiere. And I wouldn't necessarily say Batu was an evil spirit. Batu just was like, no, I'm just going to focus on your raw, ravenous nature as a spirit and make you and kind of corrupt you so where you can't think. And like literally, it was like that entity was literally kind of like season. I don't even remember. I'm trying to remember if Batu was before Amon because I really feel like it was.
I think Amon was the first season.
Yeah, Amon was the first, and then it was Vaatu. But just like that grandioso final battle with Vaatu, and then it's just kind of like you go into Kuvera, who was part of the metal bending,
right?
Metal bending, because it wasn't necessarily the Earth Kingdom, it was the metal kingdom, if you want to call it that. And then you go to the Red Lotuses, which I think were again having Zahir. Zahir is like, to me, like one of the best antagonists, really, because it was like the emotional aspect of what he was doing was not even, it was null and void. Like he literally was like, I'm on this mission for this reason, and I truly believe that we don't need the Avatar or the spirit world or whatever. So that was pretty clutch. But yeah, just how they treated Vaatu. Like Vaatu and Rava fought for decades, centuries, eons, whatever you want to call it. And then you got Juan that helped free Vaatu, but it was like that should have been the baddie. That should have been the final boss, pretty much. And it wasn't that, and it just kind of glazed over.
That's a good point.
After that, and I was just like, oh, come on, like really, like this is like, I mean, this is literally the beginning. Like it should be the beginning and the end, and it wasn't. So,
and you know something I just thought of that I thought was going to be a bigger role. That Vaatu thing happened in season 2, and then in season 4, the leader of the Earth. Was it the Earth Empire? She was trying to like expand the Earth Empire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I forget her name off the top of my head.
I don't remember. I just know she died a horrible death.
Yeah.
One thing that I do enjoy about this show, they showed some death. All right.
Yeah. Give them credit. But whenever she was fighting Korra, and whenever they were like, okay, nobody's going to interfere. You know, here's my team.
You're talking about no. That wasn't the Earth. She was the metal. Yeah. She started taking over taking back the Earth Kingdom. God damn, I always get her name.
Kuvera. And whenever she was fighting her, I think Korra was about to do like what would be like considered, I guess, a final blow of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And she made eye contact with Kuvera, and Kuvera's eyes lit up as if she had the Avatar within her, like she had the Avatar state. And it was just so glanced over and like not even described like after the fact. And it like, because there's a distinct like shift, like Korra saw it, like she saw that like eye glaze, like that white like thing, and in my mind I was like, oh, that's probably the evil entity. I'm losing the name now. We were just talking about him.
But that's after. But see, that's totally after. That's the thing.
Well, and that's what I was thinking, because in my mind I was like, oh, well, like if Rava can't die, then he can't die. So maybe he got reincarnated or somehow. Kuvera found him and like integrated the body, and then it was like, no, we're just gonna show that her eyes like lit up with the Avatar state and then just like dismiss it. It was like, to me, that was another big, we can throw that in the ugly category. It was like, man, that was such a missed opportunity. Like, you know, have them fight again and have them expose that, you know, the dark entity of life or whatever is embodied in her, and then she can re-imprison it or something. I don't know. I was just like,
I mean, but you still had to go through the Red Lotus saga, and that was like, again, I enjoyed the Red Lotus saga. I enjoyed every member on the Red Lotus, except for Pilai, which is the one that had the eye in their center. Like, I mean, that was cool, the combustion thing, but I was like, literally, like you earthbend her, you get a whole bunch of earthbending rock, and you just compound it together, or you do it with metal. And literally, like, just she tries to do the combustion, and it's like poof, blows up in her face, which they end up doing anyway. Like, I'm like, it was not that. I love that aspect about at least the Legend of Korra, is that they really, unlike the Avatar: The Last Airbender, it was always like, no, don't kill. But a lot of the Legend of Korra was like, yeah, it's no way out of here. Either we're gonna die or they're gonna die type of situation. It wasn't all the time, but it led up to those points, and when it happened, it made you more like, oh my god, like was I here and literally sucking the oxygen out of the,
that was epic.
Like that was crazy. Or even when he was attempting to do that with Korra, which I didn't like, because I was like, Korra's in the Avatar state. It's like that, you know, all the elements, and you just, I understand just learning airbending, but it's like, come on, like
there's a little bit of a
it wasn't even a fight that needed to be. But again, it's that combination of how to utilize the Avatar state, and it was more so her willpower, her as a person was more prevalent in that. So it wasn't calm. It was just rage, what she had. And I love how they played on that, but it was like, she literally could have just took the air and like pulled him like a rope was tied around him and just flushed him to the ground and just was pounded him like crazy. But anyway,
and then I think another interesting point, and this touches on my bad, was how I forget his name again, but the guy who learned airbending whenever they reopened the Spirit World, Zahir. Zahir is a perfect example of somebody who I'd be like, okay, that's an airbender. Like, he's super meditative, like he's calm. Yes. He always has his composure about him. You know, he is going through all these. And so that's what I think like Tenzin was missing. And I'm like, you know, that was what kind of threw me off with Tenzin, was like, okay, how does he have like this flip? And then Zahir, you know, he sees his girlfriend, you know, implode her head on sight, and he's just like, all right, well, I guess I can fly now.
But that was, and again, his last attachment to this world was her, which, you know, that ties into the next question that we're going into, is like, who was your favorite character? And I'm just going to jump and say it. Zahir is probably going to be my favorite character. Now, overall, it's always going to be Toph. Like, Toph to me is like hands down the best character, period.
Pretty badass.
Yeah, Toph is just hands down. But Zahir, I liked that aspect of just how calm and collective he was. Like, even when he got the airbending power, which I wasn't really clear if it was after the divergence with the spirit world and everything and the human world becoming aligned that he got airbending, or if he always was an airbender. It was very unclear at that point. But he at being an airbender and just seeing how he just dismantled every guard when he was breaking free, and then when he was breaking other people free, it was crazy. Like, it was just, to me, his character,
badass scenes too.
Yeah, his character is just calculated and driven. Driven in a way, to me, was like, it makes no sense. So I was like, so you kill the Avatar, and then you pretty much, it's like you have some Joker-esque aspects, and I'm talking about the Joker, the Dark Knight, the movie aspect, not the Joker in the comic, which they turned the Joker into this more so of how the movie role played, like with the Killing Joke and things of those natures. But you literally had him where, like, this is my chaos is what we need. This is like only the strong survive type of mentality, by doing away with the Avatar, which thought was impeding human evolution and things of that nature. And I was like, that was, to me, that made no sense. But it, again, in his mind, it was just the Red Lotuses. That was the right way to go. This is what it should be. Only the strong will survive type of situation. And he had some powerhouse team members. Like, literally everyone on his team were, when I say true benders of their element, like it was like they were literally like masters of it. I mean,
it took me a second to realize that the waterbender didn't have arms. Exactly. I didn't realize that for the longest time.
I thought she did have arms. She didn't. She was just
she was armless. Yeah, you go back. And, there was no arms.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I did. It took me a second, because the first time I saw that, I was like, wait, because I was like, oh, that's sick. Like, she's using arms to, like, you know, flail. But I was like, no, she didn't. She had no arms. She was severed. Like, whatever her backstory was, she lost her arm somewhere.
But the way she utilized, I mean, just the way the whole Red Lotus team, and I want to say Zahir just because it's focused, but the whole Red Lotus squad was fire, except for Pylai. I was like, we've seen it before. It was, you know, Cameron. We've seen that guy that was the bounty hunter or the killer who was coming after Aang. Same type of situation, but the rest of the team, like, they were amazing, and I loved how they just controlled their elements, like, to a very fine, accurate, acute. Like, they were just like, you know, 10th, 20th degree black belts. I don't even know if black belts go that high, but they're, you know, 10th degree black belts.
They did. So I mean, and that's what's interesting too, is kind of going back to your point on the very first thing. I think it was your bad was about how Korra never really had like a good teacher, and she wasn't really ever taught well. It's like, okay, who taught these people to be these absolutely insane, you know, forces of nature? Yeah, it's like, where did they get this from? Like, you know, it calls into question if the dark entity, the dark life entity, was helping them out. But again, like, you know, it could have been a great storyline to throw that in there, but
it was life experience. That's what it was. They went through some real shit, Clayton. They went through life or death experiences, and Korra did not. I mean, and that's the same thing. That's what I think a lot of people kind of like, that aspect of that whole Aang-esque type of reality. because it's really you're being coddled. Everybody else was in some life or death situations. They got to see a lot of the Fire Nation, the Earth Kingdom, all of those two, because those were the two powerful kingdoms. Right. They got to see they were running amok, attempting to control things, because the Earth Kingdom was not protagonist in the Avatar: The Last Airbender, and really we're not a protagonist there either. I mean, you had the king that worked with Aang to help create Republic City, so that was in that way. But then once he died, all of the political stuff, which we can get into later, the political aspect of that elitism and control, like even when they went to the Earth Kingdom and you saw like the impoverishedness of the Earth Kingdom, like the queen was literally just sitting in her castle in the main city, walled off from everybody else, didn't even have the trolleys that the king before that knew Aang had set up.
Literally separated, right?
Yeah, so, literally let it just let it all fall, like let the infrastructure die, and like that was it. And it was just crazy because you got to see how the walls were built up and the layers of just poverty on the far reaches and then the inside too, which associates with a lot of even our society now, even more so during this time of COVID and all that. So
sure.
Anyway, what was your favorite character? I mean, but this is great because this is what
I like
this show does. If you really like the Avatar: The Last Airbender, if you really like the whole aspect of the world building that happened, and if you really are looking at it in a way that you're attempting to compare how our society relates to it, I think that's why we're having such a great conversation with that.
I mean, it shows you that connection. Like that's the connection that like resonates with someone, and that's really what like separates an average show from a good show, is one that can actually dive deep and have those, things I was saying earlier, where it's like, there's like some real life like tidbits in there that really are like, oh, like I need to pause the cartoon show and like really digest this, because this applies to my life pretty significantly.
There we go. Now, your favorite character.
Favorite character. The first, I don't know if I'd call my favorite, but the first one that came to mind was Bolin. I really liked his whole story arc. Just a good guy. He's there for like the fun of it. And even his role in the very last season where he's like, it shows how even someone with like the best intentions and the goodest of hearts, can end up serving, let's say a tyrant, blindly. But, no, I know exactly who my favorite character is. My favorite character, and I actually kind of want to look up his name because he was the inventor.
Oh, I like him too. I wrote his name down too. The creator, Varric.
Varric, yes, easily.
The Tony Stark of the
oh my gosh,
the Avatar Saga, the Tony Stark Avatar Saga.
Yeah, absolutely. Just such a clown, and just like obviously genius, but just like. And then his relationship with Julie, like everything about that was just so like well executed, and just his humor was on point. Like I think I have to put, I guess Bolin would be my favorite story arc, but I think Varric was my favorite character for sure.
Yeah, I gotta Varric, to me, again, like I said, he literally was a Tony Stark of the Avatar world. Julie was always holding him down, was very intelligent herself. But just like she really she loved him. It was literally like a Tony and Pepper situation. Like literally that's what I thought. And like he was a futurist. Like he always was thinking above and beyond. Ahead. And he never it was never like a one thing I definitely love about Varric, and I'm glad you brought him up, is that he never looked down on anybody. And that's what I really enjoyed about them. Even when Bolin had his moment, he was like, that's amazing. He was like, and I was like, that type of person, the person that cheers you on, even though they're like leagues away as far as intellect goes, like that is a great character. That's that's why he got so much. And he never wanted to build, even though he was a futurist. One thing I liked about him compared to like a Tony Stark or something like a Wayne family situation like Bruce Wayne, is like he never wanted to build weapons of mass destruction. He always wanted to build something that was artful, that he could sit around with all his rich friends, or not even rich friends, because he was literally taking boatloads of money from wealthy people. But he can sit around his artistic people and everything like that and sit down and just have a great drink and storytelling and always talk about how great he is, but it was really just he wanted that community around, and he never, even though he may have seemed arrogant, he never came off, at least in my perspective, in a way of like, I'm just better than you. That was never the case. So
that's so true, because even if he
brought that up,
even if he did kind of like, it wasn't even like he ever belittled someone, but like if someone said something and he disagreed with it, he had a way of like being like, all right, like that's cool you believe that, but I don't believe it, so I'm just gonna kind of keep it to myself and make a joke about it, and we'll move on. It's like just everything about it, just like, you know, you come in at these like hilarious times. At the one point where he's like in the, it was like a platypus like caught like a platypus type a platypus bear like outfit or something.
Oh.
He was like hiding in there with Julie was in there.
with the like the Earth Kingdom, when he was under the tunnel type of situation with the badger. Like the badger mixed whatever those animals were. Yes.
Yeah, then he's just like, oh, this is a good idea. Julie, write this down. Like, you know, it's just like, I got another idea. Like, hey, we're gonna do this.
He failed forward, man, and that's what I loved about him. Like he failed forward. He didn't care what people thought about him. He just was like, I know that I'm the shit, and like I know I'm great, and I don't care if you think I am or not. And that charismatic aspect of his character really brought people around him, and he played a key role in everything. I mean, seriously, what's her name? Kuvera. I mean, again, he built that weapon that he didn't want to build. He told her like, you shouldn't be tapping into the negative spiritual aspect, where I understand where you thought that Vatu may have been coming back with that, which would have been a great segue if he did come back, especially when they were in that platinum. Come on, literally, they made a platinum mech. Like that was just crazy. Literally a platinum. How much work, and again, money aspect, and that's something to talk about too. The money aspect is really not relevant too much.
Yeah.
In this show, at least from the people who didn't need it really, because when you had benders, most of the benders were not necessarily worried too much about money, because there were certain aspects that they can do always to make a coin. But it was really like, think about it, like, okay, we need this equipment to drill. No, we don't. We're just going to get a whole bunch of earth benders, and we're going to find this, because you got to fill the earth to see what's metal and what's not. Anything that you can't bend in the ground that may have some of a metal aspect, that could be a non-metallic thing like platinum, or at least what's what the show says. Because again, do your research. I'm not really 100% sure. Like that was crazy. No, it was good times. Go ahead before I jump into the next question.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I was thinking of to touch on, it kind of wraps my two favorite characters together, I think was when actually we're first introduced to Varric was through Bolin, if I remember correctly. Where Varric's like,
I'm trying. Yeah, man, no, they were on the boat. They were on a boat, but I don't know who brought Bolin. Yeah, Bolin actually was there on the boat with him. You're right, but it wasn't Bolin who went to Varric. I forgot who went to Varric.
So then was it a different guy who Bolin like walks into like a little like hut almost, and you know he's meditating, and the guy's like, oh, I'm like floating right now, and everybody in the room's like, oh, you're floating right now.
No, that's
sitting on the ground.
That's
okay.
Varric.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I think
that's a boat. It wasn't a hut. I think it was I thought they were on a boat, but maybe I'm completely wrong. Go ahead. Let me not lose your train of thought.
It's okay. I mean, I think I was pointing out the like. But so I guess case in point is I think Varric was like, oh, like I'm meditating and I'm floating, and everyone like there was probably like 10 people sitting in a circle around him. Yeah, and they were like, oh yeah, you're floating, and Bolin just comes in and is like, dude, what are you talking about? Like you were sitting on the ground the entire time, and everyone's like, what the hell? Like who's this guy? Like is like all nervous, and then Varric just gets like all serious, and he's like, all right, I like this guy. Like you're a straight shooter.
Love it. He was again. He didn't want any yes people around him. Like, I mean, even with Julie had him. He loved Julie a lot. So that's what I enjoy. Like, without Julie, he was like, got to get back to Julie. Good with that, man. So the next question we're going to bring on here is, what character did you dislike? And I'm gonna let you go ahead.
So the first thing that comes to mind is Tenzin. It's just he's out of character. They didn't lock in the master airbender character with him, in my opinion. Like, and then his kids are so chaotic, and it was almost like the oldest daughter who like could do the spirit traveling was more, which I guess they essentially say because she was able to go into the spirit world. So with that being said, I might like backtrack what I was saying, because they needed Tenzin to be a little bit non meditative, so that they could highlight his daughter being able to go into the spirit world through meditation.
Yes.
So there's probably an element there.
Jinora is the daughter's
Jinora.
name.
Yep.
And
Jinora.
And Jinora, I think back to your point with that about with Tenzin is, with that you got to realize that Tenzin, he felt that he reached everything his father could do minus the spiritual aspect, and Jinora was literally just naturally, the spirit world was connected to her just innately, and like he did attempt to meditate a lot, but that, to the point that you're making, because when he meditated, he wanted to go to the astral plane, he wanted to meet that spiritual world, but he never could. It never connected with him, because again, every one of the children, and I think another thing which I like about the show and what it portrayed is, like, just because your parent was the Avatar, or your parent was some form of a bender, didn't mean that you'll get any of that. I mean, Boomy, Boomy, their brother, the oldest brother, no bending whatsoever. I mean, he ended up getting air bending after the convergence between the spirit world and the mortal world. But it was like, that's what I enjoyed about it. But yeah, definitely to your point, Tenzin, I like Tenzin character just because it was a reminder of Aang, and I love the fact that he was like really attempting to be like, to show his father, like, yeah, like, this is something my dad really wanted before he died, is to have more airbenders, because he felt alone. Like, I mean, you got to remember, Aang literally could have died if not in the Avatar state,
right?
Saved his life, and he had everybody else that he knew that was an airbender literally was killed. Like, so for Tenzin, it was like that pressure that really, I think, was relieved once he accepted the fact, which his sister, what's his sister's name? And I wrote her name down too. Kaya, her and Boomy, they were trying to tell him, like, you're trying to be like, you're attempting to be like dad, but you're not dad, you're you. And like, I love, and even that conversation between him and Jinora when they got into it about, because he couldn't tell the spirits, like, it just wasn't for his role to be, it was for her role. So her wanting to be officially brought into being an air nomad by getting her hair chopped off and getting the arrows. He was like, kept telling her she needed more practice, but she mastered everything. She followed him to a T. And I think really it was that aspect of not being able to connect with the spiritual world. And when he found out she could, it was just like, oh, this is just crazy. I dedicated my whole life, and like, it's just naturally gifted to her. And it's like, you can't pick and choose how the powers.
And this is something that I'm actually dealing with in my life right now, and starting to realize is like the idea of, just because you want something doesn't mean it's for you, right? Like the whole idea of like, I could, hopefully my dog doesn't bark right now, but let's see what happens.
All right, we're good.
She's in that like proud mode, and I'm like, oh shit. All right, she's sitting down now. For example, like say, I want to be an NFL athlete, let's say, but like, just because, you want to be something, you can do anything in your power, but if it's not for you, if it's not your calling, the universe is always going to just put like a little roadblock or hold you back in a certain way. And it's like, you need to, find out what you want to do that is for you at the same time, almost, where it's like, okay, like I'm going with the universe, like, feeling what's right for me. Okay, this feels right. I enjoy doing this. So I'm just going to ride it out, as long as the universe is like willing to let me do it, And so it's just, I'm just going to follow that path until, either my interests change, or, there's a physical or emotional or whatever you want to call it roadblock that is like literally like, no, you can't do it. Like, no, you're 60 years old. You can no longer be in the NFL. Like you will break, like, just stuff like that,
The universe leads you down the path that, and that people might be like, that's too much about predetermined destiny and all that, but it's just showing you the natural gift that you have, I guess. Dislike for me, characters that I disliked, man, it was tough. It was hard to find a character that I dislike, but I'm gonna probably shoot it to Korra and then Toph's daughter. What was her name? What was Toph's daughter name?
She was always mad.
Yeah. I'm trying to find. Did I even write her name down? I didn't even write her name down. I feel so horrible for that.
Let me see if I can find her.
Yeah. I can't believe I missed Toss daughter's name. Yeah, with those two, and I think because again, holding on to
Suyin.
Tien. Okay.
Was it Suyin?
No, not Suyin. No.
Batar.
Nope. I didn't write it down, so I couldn't even tell you.
Or Lin. It was just Lin.
Lin. There you go. Yeah.
Lin. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And Suyin was her sister, who she was.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Who she was upset about because of like her always breaking the law and everything like that. And but Lin and Korra, I think it was that whatever that roadblock was with them mentally, and Korra went through a lot emotionally, especially I think she really thought the Avatar was like, oh yeah, I get to have all this fun and meet all these people. And then she realized that no, not everybody likes bending. Like she loved bending, but like a lot of people, there were people who didn't like bending, and going to Republic City showed the political aspect. But then even with the whole thing with her uncle, Ulak, who helped Vatu trying to bring all the all the spirits back and everything, and just learning that even with her father and understanding how that aspect of the Southern Water Tribe versus the Northern Water Tribe and how they had to deal with things politically. I think it was really like a realization to her of what adulthood was with people who just everybody wanted something. And even if you think you want to be left alone, it's not really that way, because you have to deal with other people, and other people may push on you a certain thing, and there be times that you have to fight, and it's not going to be like, okay, I just punch you and you fall, or I knock you out and you're good. It's like, it could be something where it's like, it's a life or death situation because they believe in this and they want you to just go along with it. And for Lynn, it was just a matter of like, you just had to, that's your sister, your younger sister at that too. Your mom was like, and she doesn't know Toph's history. And that's another thing I'll get to that answering that question, but like just Toph's history and understanding Toph and what Toph went through and having those conversations, like it was just something that I wish was brought more forth.
And I mean, even from Toph's perspective, right? Like, she was the kid of like, an emperor and an emperor and a queen. And like, she had the most like sheltered life and absolutely hated it. And then had to go and, the only fun she had was to kind of like, go into these bending matches where then she could like kind of just get out of that pressure control of her, family. And so, it brings up another whole thing.
There we go. Keep going.
Is where it's like, it doesn't matter, it can look picturesque and perfect on the outside. You're the daughter of an emperor. Everything should be perfect for you. And it's like, no, like we kind of all have our own shit that we're dealing with. Like no matter if you're the daughter of an emperor or if you're the Avatar or if you're, some dude who thinks he wants to kill the Avatar or, you know what I mean? There's always just, and it's almost like Varric, for one, as one example, almost transcended all of his. We don't really have much of a backstory on him, though.
No.
At least not to my memory. But it's almost like he kind of transcended all of his BS in life and now just kind of appreciates the nature of reality for what it is and is just, almost in love with life.
He's doing him, man. And he was a nomad as well, too. Like, and I know we're we're supposed to be talking about dislikes, but I think that ties into the aspect of capitalism and how really capitalism to me is cannibalism, because it is to the point of like just extracting as much as you can for the least amount of equivalent exchange so I can stay on our anime world. And it's just self-deprecating. It constantly it's like eats itself and shits itself out. It's not a balance. And the thing with that is like Varric, I think, understood that because he probably went through a whole lot of stuff of just trying to keep up. And then literally people were paying him, a lot of currency at that, whatever their currency was, to do things. And he was just like, all right. And then he would just spend it, or he would just enjoy himself. But he always was like, I can always make this, but this is not going to be the reason that it enslaves me or puts me in a box of what I need to do. So
I was following his internal guide,
Exactly. Get that gut feeling. About it, man. Especially martial arts, that gut instinct, man. Especially with a throw or a block, or a arm bar or a choke out. like something tells you like get away from this or lean into it or something of that nature.
You feel it. There's a little spike, and you're like,
Exactly.
oh, yep, that shouldn't be doing that.
So the next question is, what character did you want to know more about?
I think we're just gonna go right. We're
going back to Varric?
I'm just going straight through on Varric. Yeah, I wish I would have known more about his backstory, man.
See, easy answer.
Shout out the ordering for these questionings.
Thank you.
You're nailing it.
I took my time. I'm getting better at taking my time getting these questions.
Man, you've clearly been interviewing for a while now, or something.
Thank you. For me, I think I wanted to know more about I wanted more about the Red Lotuses, and I wanted to get more of that backstory. Okay. But really, my main character is just Toph. I wanted to know what Toph saw. She talked about it with Korra as far as like why she went to the swamps and why she didn't really want to deal with everybody. But I think just that those two groups. Toph by herself, but really the Red Lotus, and understand what they went through and why the Red Lotus separated. Because I believe the White Lotus, the Red Lotus came from people in the White Lotus who just didn't agree. So I wanted to really get like maybe Iroh, because Iroh was back in this saga.
Well, that's another question is how was General Iroh like alive in the spirit world? Like we never really got a whole lot of background on how he was able to transcend reality. I mean, first of all, he's sick. Great character. If we were talking about the first Airbender, he would be probably the
man
top
worked
of the
out
list.
for just a couple of days and was back to being buff. All right, come on.
From a nutrition point of view, I have Korra with that because they're only giving him like one plate. It's like, how is he building? But that's the first one. That's the first one.
The amount of pull-ups that he could do, man. The man was probably about a good solid 280, and he was
easy.
just like doing pull. I was like, bro, I'm in that weight class, and I'm not hitting like he was hitting like pull-ups like for days.
Oh my gosh, must be that fire energy or something.
Yeah, man. He was killing it, man. That's how he was doing it, man. He was burning the fat, and that's how he was surviving off that. That's how he was building muscle, I guess.
Yeah, converted into muscle or something, right?
But yeah, that's definitely wanted to know more about the Red Lotuses. Wanted to understand that backstory. Zahir was pretty straightforward, but I really just wanted to know what they went through to join the Red Lotus, and how the Red Lotus organization came about, and who was the founders and things of that nature. That is something that
because if we're making real world parallels here, and maybe I should be careful about how long we stay on this topic because it's all being recorded.
Go ahead.
But you could say the White Lotus would almost be like the let's say positive representation of like the Illuminati in today's society, or the controlling elites who are kind of in the background, but not like, it's not like the president who's like the figurehead. It's everybody else who's kind of like in the background pulling the strings of everything that's going on. I thought the White Lotus was kind of like that positive representation almost of that. And, the Red Lotus was almost like, what it is in today's society, the negative representation of
the realism, man. The like I said, they went through a lot. Like when you told me that she had no arms, I'm like, and the person you're talking about is Ming Hao. Ming Hao is the waterbender, and I'm like, I really thought she had arms, man. So like, it's just that again. Reality versus what you want the world to be or what you want society to be versus the reality, and how do you balance that? And that would, to me, would have been it could be its own story within itself. Literally, you could just call it the Lotus Wars. Shout out to me for calling it the Lotus Wars. All right. And if you're watching this, Avatar creators, shout out to y'all, man. Hey, give me some credit.
Was it? Was it Steven Spielberg that made the Star Wars? I know it's a bad question.
No. That's Steven Spielberg.
We'll have to get him doing the Lotus Wars.
The Lotus Wars, man. I'm with it. So next question is, what elemental bending did you enjoy in the show?
Did I enjoy in the show?
Yes. Did you enjoy it?
All right. I felt like there wasn't a lot of fire bending. So that would be low on the list. Water bending, I was kind of upset about the ice thing that we talked about. Airbending as well, it felt like there wasn't a lot. I definitely liked how Zahir was able to like float, because that was something that I was always like, okay, if you can control the wind, you should be able to float. Like in my mind, it was always like, okay, you should be doing that.
And flying too. Floating and flying.
Exactly. Carrying fucking Korra and flying. Crazy. But so here's what I think I really enjoyed, let's say, about the bending in general, and it goes to kind of your point. I'm not sure if we were talking about this pre live or during it, was, you were talking about how, in the Avatar days, in the original, The Last Airbender, it was like, okay, it's just air, fire, water, and earth. And now it's like, okay, lightning is mainstream, metal is mainstream, lava. And so and here's where we go into the meta of it all, is like, the human mind is just so, like, we're so, like, in our own cages almost. And it takes one person to just be like, no, we can do it a different way. It takes just one person to do the unthinkable, say Michael Jordan or something like that, or sports are like the only thing coming to mind right now, but it just takes one person, right?
Think about all the scientists, man, who created or who found the elemental aspect of things that we were just like, what? Like, I mean,
right.
by imagining it. Go ahead. I don't
right.
want to cut you off.
Here's something I just thought of and this is in a book I was reading where for the longest time, someone ran like a 4-minute and like, I think 5-second mile time. And for the next, like, I think like 30 years or something like that, nobody could get sub 4 minutes. And it became like a culture almost where scientists were showing that it's physically impossible for humans to run a sub 4-minute mile. And then one dude finally broke it at like 3 minutes and 58 seconds. And in the next, like, I definitely fact check this, but like the general idea is there, where in the next year it got broken like 18 times by, people. And so it really highlights that like idea of like, all these things are impossible until somebody does it. Now it's no longer impossible. And the possibility opens up for everybody else, and again, that's even shown with the very first Airbender. First of all, shout out that they incorporated the first Airbender. I thought that was a sick storyline. But, the turtles were literally like, okay, we've never infused a human with more than one element.
Yes.
Like we can't do that. Like, do you know what you're asking us to do? Yeah, exactly. The first Avatar. And so he was like, yeah, screw it. Just give me them all. And, and it's just it's that human thing that relates to the real world where it's like, okay, we all have such like a limited mindset on what is possible and achievable in this world. And it just takes one person to just be like, I disagree. And here's how I see reality. And let me physically show you the way I see reality. And it's working. I hopefully that made some sense in there.
No, I got you. It's jailbreaking our minds.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
For me, I'm gonna say definitely like the earth benders because the metal bending, the lava bending, like those are things to me where I love. And don't get me wrong, air to me is like it's always a battle between earth and air because I'm like, man, if I could levitate and fly, like that's just like what every human being wants to do. Like they just look at the birds and they, helicopters, airplanes for a reason. We want to fly.
Yeah, so we made them for exactly.
And I just think that but earth bending to me is just so many things with the earth that you could do because of lava bending, because of metal. And that'll tie into this next question, which I'm gonna make sure we jump into before we get too crazy.
Perfect segue.
And perfect segue into what elemental bending would you have and how would you evolve it? All right. Ooh. And I'm gonna go with you. I'm gonna let you think about it because I already got mine. I already know what mine is. I was saying it before. It was earth, but I'm gonna let you talk about what elemental bending do you want and how would you evolve it?
So I think I would want air just because personally I meditate a lot and I feel like it would kind of connect with me. But if I'm going to be evolving one, I think it would be water because I feel like there's been no real evolution of it. Like there was the blood bending, which makes sense, but there was no which is just bending water itself, right? There was no turning air into water like that would be how.
Ooh,
there
okay.
it is.
I got you. I see you. Look at you. What taking the hydrogen molecule? Okay, what? We're in science class right now. Shout out to Denise. Shout out to my co-host KinkySudz. We're doing science, but go ahead.
There you go. Yeah, he's gonna have to tell us how we do it from a molecular level. But because I think they slightly touch on it whenever in the first Airbender. Actually, I just realized this. Whenever I think they see a cloud. Oh yeah, they're stranded in the desert. It was after the library. They're stranded in the desert and they see a cloud, and Aang flies up to capture the cloud with the water from the cloud. And they're like, oh, there's no water here, because there wasn't a lot. But, being able to actually pull the moisture out of the air Now I have no idea if we want to get down to the scientific level. I have no idea how the environmental impact that might have, but but I think that's
the oxygen, and I'm just taking
we're in trouble.
Taking the hydrogen molecules, and we're making it happen. That actually that you mentioned that was an amazing answer right there. Airbender. So you want to be you want water. You want to be able to bend the water, but to be able to take water out of the air. So take the hydrogen molecules out of that is.
There it is.
That beats anything I was about to say, but that was, like I said, it was always a toss up between those three. I mean, I think fire is great, but it's always air, water, and earth that I was always like one of those three. You got to do it, and right. I think I would love to, since you took water, I would love to do earth, and I would like earth to be focused more on like the magnetism of the planet, so earthquakes.
That's cool.
Things of those natures, because like even though the planet is 70% or plus of water, like at the bottom of that is earth. Like right. Like all of this, like we may not be able to physically be able to get to the bottom of where we could actually literally walk in the deepest depths of the sea, but at the end of that there's earth. So I would love for that almost Magneto-esque type of magnetism for earth benders to incorporate, because I think with that is like, I can only imagine, like to me it always never made sense to me. Well, no, it did, because earthbenders, when they did fight waterbenders, they always just put up a block of a wall of just heavy earth, and they're like, it just absorbed it. Right. But I can just imagine, even when they were one of the scenes with Amon, and like he was getting everybody in the water. Can you imagine the earthbender literally just pulling up the earth or the ground from underneath the water, right, and literally just playing hopscotch on it as they try to like like a water bender tries to take them, like tries to drown them, and they literally just cover themselves with earth and just like blast. It's just, like that whole magnetism earth type of thing. Like I always thought that would be cool, because then you can just control a lot of stuff. Tectonic plates, like this is ridiculous, man. Like I don't think that they really evolved it to that level. I think the lava aspect is great, and then shout out to the YouTube channel I was watching when they talked about glass. And I think that's another thing that I would evolve into. So that wasn't my thought process. I was thinking more of the magnetism side, but taking the lava bending and heating up the earth to a point where you're making glass, and like using glass bending, like people probably be like, that's worthless. But I'm like, you could do a lot. You could do a lot with glass. I mean, you can make glass shards and make them super sharp and cut everybody up to pieces. You can
it'd be pretty deadly.
You can enclose someone in glass and literally just make it very thick, and then they can't breathe type of situation. It's just like, it's crazy what you could do. Like there's no limit. Back to your point about imagination, there's no limit to that imagination of what these bendings can do. So
I want to piggyback off what you're saying here and to bridge this gap, right? Like with glass or even magnetics. Because I'm thinking to myself, magnetism. I'm trying to think if it would be more correlated, and I don't know. It makes sense with earth, but if it would be more or less correlated with fire, right? Because like, take what I was saying about the water, and it relates to the air, right? You're pulling water out of air. So, once you start having these complex ideas of how you're able to evolve, let's say earthbending or firebending or waterbending, it starts bleeding into the other ones. So then you could have an argument where you could just create the human mind where you're then able to learn a completely new water bending, or you could be an earthbender and then you're able to bend air, or you're able to bend glass, let's say, which then can expose you to bending fire, and you're able to then work through kind of, I guess, almost all the elements if you're able to find these little pathways that take you to the next one.
Yeah. I think that air still has a lot. All of the elements do, but I think air especially, because to your point earlier where you're like Aang and different airbenders just using their breath to get out of things. Like just imagine if they literally just made a stream of just very calculated high pressure air. You're going to make it to the point to where so calculated and so pinpoint that it literally could just burst into flames. Like, I mean, those are things that, those are things, the evolution of like, it's like taking a air gun and literally it's like the pressure is so high and it's like, so it's so forceful that you literally could just creates
like a spark or
create
something.
heat. Yeah, create heat. Like I would love to see that. And I know that Pai Lai that's what they were doing with airs, like heating it up to no level. But I'm just like, how can you do like this bazooka type pressure gun,
right?
With just your breath, with your breath breathing out or some of that nature.
So was that an airbender or was that?
No, that was a firebender. So
okay,
that was
fire.
Firebender just heating up
air, I guess, right? Because they had to breathe in.
So it was like, so why can't an airbender do that? Because
right.
It doesn't make any sense why they can't do that and to use it to that level. It's like all the elements, just like the whole point of the Avatar combined, you can use them all. You just have to have, back to your point, the imagination aspect. So, hey, Clayton, this has been a great episode, man. We already hit the hour mark. I'm finishing up my last beer.
You're still with me, so that's always good.
Yeah, but this is what I'm talking about, man. I appreciate you coming on. We had a great conversation, and I think Korra, last question before we get off of here is like, what would the next saga for the Avatar be for you? Like, what are you looking for if they do a part 3 of the Avatar?
Man, I don't know if this is maybe this goes off of the Lotus Wars. We take it to outer space, man. Maybe we find another civilization out there that
that's where we're going.
Mastered. And maybe, at some point we got to get off this planet, right? If we're controlling the tectonic plates and we're taking water out of the atmosphere, like, we're gonna have to Elon Musk this and go to a different planet at a certain point, right? Find some new elements. Maybe there's like, I don't know. Now I'm getting a little out of control.
Gravity, gravity. There we go. Gravity.
Gravity benders. Oh my gosh. We're about to have another hour conversation. I don't know if you have time for it.
I'm just saying. That's what if we're gonna go outer space, man, I definitely want gravity bending to be a thing. I think earth benders could actually go into the world of gravity bending. But that's more so, and maybe that's an airbender that does that. I just can't. That just blow my mind to have an airbender do gravity. It's like no one. It'd be unstoppable. Like, okay, yeah, you're doing all this wonderful stuff with fire and water and blah blah blah.
Right.
But I'm just gonna make the gravity 1,000 times heavier, and I'm just gonna crush you all to death.
Oh my gosh! And now we're gonna run into the problem of creating a black hole.
Yeah, there we go. Now we're talking, man. See, but you got that's where it's like, don't cross that line. And somebody will cross it and learn how to control the gravity in a black hole.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
Well, Clayton, man, hey, it was a pleasure. Look at that, man. We can't wait for Avatar season 3. The control of gravity is coming to your world. It's coming to a theater near you, or a streaming service near you. Hey, Clayton, appreciate you. This has been another episode of Black Nerd Fridays. Can't wait till next week to meet up with the co-hosts, see how they're doing. And yeah, we're always going to be here every Friday. Consistency is key. And I appreciate you all. Thank you for those on the replay. Remember, again, when you're watching the replay, make sure to hit the subscribe button, tell a friend of a friend of a friend, because we have great conversations on Black Nerd Fridays just like this. So again, another episode of Black Nerd Fridays, and we'll catch you next Friday and every Friday after that.
Appreciate you, Daryl. Thank you for having me.